Welcome to a football show Friday edition here at the NFL Combine. That is Nick Suss of the Tennessee, and I am Braden Gall, and we are, of course, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, live from the Air B&B here in Indianapolis, live on day number, 5? Day number 4? I don't know what day we're on. Time's the flat circle.
4, maybe. 4. 4. I'm going with 4.
Monday doesn't count, right?
No, I don't think it does.
Monday night counted. My body thought Monday night counted, that's for sure. Some heated games of shuffleboard and some Italian food last night for the Titans press corps. More importantly, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward spoke today. You, Nick Suss, spoke with Chad Brinker all morning this morning. Story already up, Tennessean.com, about the Titans getting offers for the number 1 pick in the draft. We'll talk about that. And, of course, more stories coming from you as well. Important words being used by the Titans general manager. So there we go. QC, good to see you in the comments. If you want to throw, I guess it's not general manager, it's director of football operations.
Director of football operations, president of football operations, whatever you want to call it.
There you go.
It's president.
Right, so we're going to talk about all that stuff coming up today on the show. We're going to hear from Shedeur Sanders. We're going to hear from Cam Ward. Lots of good stuff as well there. So we got a lot of stuff to discuss today on the show. It's been a great week. Neither quarterback is going to throw. That was Cam Ward told everybody immediately following his press availability today that he will not throw. So we'll get into that as well. So lots of stuff going on, of course, here on the pod. So if you want to give us a thumbs up, notifications turned on, all that good stuff, please do so. We do appreciate that. And so we're going to have a good time today on this show as my computer's acting up here, Nick. I don't know. I blame the Tennessean. I blame the Tennessean.
That is I will not endorse doing that, but I understand doing that.
So a lot of good stuff. Sinkers Beverages, of course. You're great and local sponsor here on the pod. Make sure 4-time liquor store of the year. Make sure you go swing by, check out Sinkers Beverages there in East Nashville. Their sister store, Bluegrass Beverages, up in Hendersonville. Make sure you check them out as well, as they've been serving the community for over 50 years. Sinkers celebrating its 40th birthday this year, so that's 90 years of serving the communities in Nashville, locally owned and operated. And, of course, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, the best brisket in the city. Make sure you go check out Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. All right, here's the thing I would say.
Okay.
About the two quarterbacks and sort of the takeaways. First of all, number one, and we'll play some mashups here of these guys, some supercuts of those guys and what they had to say this today. They're not going to throw tomorrow. They're not going to work out. I get that. But oozing confidence. Shedeur Sanders expected different type of confidence from Cam Ward. This is a young man who's not as polished and comfortable with the lights and the bright lights in the stage that clearly Shedeur Sanders is. But oozing confidence, very confident, and holds himself to a very high standard. So, but I think the biggest takeaway for me from being here, talking to folks, sort of confirmed what I thought going into this week, which is that there's a large gap between the two quarterbacks in terms of which one, and large is relative, of course. There is a sizable gap has developed between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, that one of them is clearly the option for the number 1 pick for the Tennessee Titans, and the other one is an option for the Tennessee Titans. Maybe later on in the draft, in the first 10 picks, should they think that that's a chance that they might have a slot later on in the top 10. So that's my thoughts on the gap there, Nick.
Understood. I think that's something that we talked about this the other day, the gap between media big boards and team big boards. I am not necessarily shocked if the league is kind of catching up to Cam having an edge on Shedeur. I've said on this show before that I understand preferring Shedeur. There have been periods I kind of oscillate back and forth. There have been periods where I've preferred Shedeur, preferred the accuracy, preferred the processing, the anticipatory nature, the stuff that people use to describe players like Tua Tagovailoa, that sort of stuff. I understand preferring that. I understand preferring the big arm, the activity, the upside of Cam Ward. I am not going to purport myself as some genius scout here, but I am not surprised that the one who has the higher upside is kind of taking away.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair, and no insight whatsoever into which direction the Tennessee Titans are feeling about all of this. But I do get a sense, and this is none of these conversations were with folks inside the organization, so this is not reporting in any way. But when you hear conversations, you sort of over the course of the whole week, Nick, I think what you do is you start to paint a picture of things that you feel are sort of commonly believed across different organizations with different people, media, inside another team, somebody who covers that team. You know, like you sort of get a feel for what you think the big picture looks like. And I think I think they largely, everyone believes that the Titans are going to be picking between Abdul Carter and Cam Ward, with Travis Hunter as an option at 3. But that seems to be the consensus for what the perception is of what the Tennessee Titans are going to do.
Yeah, I mean, when was the last time that a player that did not play one of their positions was drafted first overall?
Yeah.
Was it Eric Fisher in 2013? Has there been a tackle since then?
I don't think so. No, no.
I might be missing one. Sound off in the comments if I'm missing one.
Long?
Jake Long would have been before that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is not a shock that they're picking between the quarterback and the edge rusher. That's what the team with the number 1 pick always seems to do. But still interesting that is what the critical consensus is starting to kind of shape out.
That is absolutely true. And again, we will get to your conversations with Chad Brinker and the Tennessee Titans, how they feel about all this stuff, because he was on the record with Nick. Go read it, Tennessean.com. Go pay for good journalism, of course, Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to hear from both of the quarterbacks first. I want you to react to it, Nick, when we hear this, because a lot of stuff was said. This is sort of our Supercuts kind of best stuff here. It's a lot of different questions. Cam Ward was, of course, asked by Koharski and Jim Wyatt and Teron Davenport about their knowledge of Brian Callahan, the system, and all that good stuff. I do love watching the Nashville press corps like get its way all the way to the front of a massive throng and get their questions in back to back to back. I was very impressed. Good job, Nashville press corps. So here was kind of a mashup, some supercuts here of Cam Ward and what he had to say on Thursday of the NFL Combine.
Just holding people accountable. I'm not no rah-rah guy. At this point in your career in the NFL, you shouldn't need somebody to motivate you every day. You got to be self-motivated. That's the type of person I am. That's the type of leader I am. So I just think, what I can bring to a franchise, no other player can bring. I think I know a decent amount. I was able to watch a couple of their games this past season. A lot of their route concepts are similar to stuff that we do. So, if I'm drafted there, I just think it'd be plug and play. We had good interactions. Myself with Coach Callahan, the quarterback's coach, and also the GM. It's a great staff they put together. They got unbelievable players. So, I just hope, that God puts me, in a good situation. The tape says everything, I believe. And I'm honest to that. But I think just what separates me from everybody is the way I approach it. The mindset that I have going into the field each and every game. And I mean, coming from, my journey, not a lot of people can do that. So I just think it shows, the work that I'm willing to put in, whether I go first round or second round. At the end of the day, the draft pick don't mean nothing. It's all about, establishing yourself once you get the opportunity. I'm better at that over my years throughout college. And at the end of the day, as a quarterback, you can't rely on scramble drill and, having to win out of structure. Because you can't win in the pocket, you'll never be successful. I think we'll both end up being one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I just think the work that me and him are willing to put in, the relationship we have to constantly compete each and every day to better our craft, for ourselves. I just think it's going to end up paying off for us in the long run. Yeah, we play around, we joke around with it. It really don't mean nothing. The draft pick will never mean anything. At the end of the day, you got to show whether you can prove each and every Sunday. You can't just do it one year and show up the next year. You got to do it every time you step on the field.
Okay, what do you think?
All right, Cam Ward there with a lot to say. I think there's a lot of to take away from this, and we'll get to sort of Koharski wrote this that Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward opposite of Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, I want to be the number 1 pick. Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders today doesn't matter. And you heard Cam Ward saying that I don't care. It doesn't matter where I go. I still got to go out and do the work. I think work ethic, personality, quiet confidence, and holding other people accountable and understanding the role of quarterback. I do think they both understand it very well, and we'll hear from Shedeur in a second. They understand it in a very different way. But I think Cam Ward is a really interesting young man in how he views accountability, work ethic, the teamwork. Teron asked him, why are you confident that you can stand in front of 10 grown men and lead them? And that was sort of his first answer there. He was like, it's about accountability, and you got to be self-motivated in the NFL.
Yeah. I think of who was I talking to? I think it was Tyler Barron, one of his Miami teammates, former Vol, who said something pretty interesting about Cam Ward that pretty much boiled down to the first practice, the first fall practice, summer practice, whatever it was, that he got to see Cam in front of 10 Miami offensive players is when he realized Cam was a little bit different. There was an intensity and there was a way that a bunch of people who he'd never worked with before led him. It was different. It's not the same walking into a room of 20-year-olds as it is walking into a room of 27-year-olds. I get that. But
all of whom are millionaires.
But when you have that ability to just let people feed off of your intensity, I've used the word here before, but the word that comes up a lot when people talk about Cam Ward is demanding. The way that he is demanding of himself and demanding of others, I think, is something that he expects, and it is intuitive to believe should be expected, can translate at the next level. That is, at the most reductive level possible, what leadership is. It is having the ability to make other people believe what you believe. So if that trait is translatable, which it was translatable from Incarnate Word to Washington State to Miami, Cam Ward shouldn't be somebody that we're concerned about from a stepping in and being a leader perspective. But not every skill always translates. We know that.
Well, and I think the questions that we ask about skills translating with Cam Ward is, and he did talk a little bit about this, where he's like, hey, you got to stay in the pocket, but like, why stop from making, like, and he was big, and this was interesting to me because he was big on why not hold the ball if it gives your receivers a chance to get open, which is one of the complaints and maybe the concerns about his game at Miami, which is he maybe held the ball a little bit too long. And then at the last minute, he might take a riskier play, right? A riskier throw across the body against Florida or against Cal or against Syracuse, games that he had some moments where he didn't play great. What's interesting, it's just that to me is interesting that he leaned into that, I thought. And to your point, I think all of this stuff about off the field or between the ears or in the huddle or in the locker room, I think all of that stuff is going to translate. He's intense in the right ways. He's calculating. He's focused. There's guys that have. There's lots of people that are outwardly confident and intense. Shedeur Sanders is one of them. I might be one of them. Intensity, maybe not the confidence part, but there's lots of people in sports that are very quietly competitive, and they don't exude that same persona, but they're extremely competitive and driven inside. And I think Cam Ward is very clearly that. I thought the comment about why wouldn't I hold on to the football longer to give my receivers a chance to make plays, and being outside the pocket is one of my strengths. And it was interesting that he leaned into that. Because in the NFL, you really can't hold on to the ball too long. That's one of the things you've got. Like Sam Darnold, the only knock on Sam Darnold right now is that he holds on to the ball too long. And he just had a great season for the Vikings.
Yeah, and it's worth reading between the lines if we want to play the puzzle piece game. What did Brian Callahan say 3 days ago about fixing players versus leaning into the things that can't be fixed versus tolerating the things that can't be fixed? All of these things. Cam Ward is a poster child for, is he somebody that you want to fix, or is he somebody that you want to figure out how to play around the things that should be fixed? It's a gamble. It's a risk. But if he is out here saying, look, we'll talk about the holding on to the ball thing, because I've done a lot of research on this, a way too much research on players who hold on to the ball too long in college. The players who hold on to the ball too long in college are, without exception, always top draft picks. Like, there are one or two small instances where there is a college player who holds onto the ball too long because he's bad at football. But 90% of the time, if a high-level college football player is holding onto the ball too long, that means he's really good at football. And he can get away from people, and he trusts his teammates, and he can get the ball downfield. Some players who held onto the ball too long in the past, Caleb Williams won a Heisman Trophy holding onto the ball way too long.
Famously.
Leading the country in amount of time per dropback. Kenny Pickett held the ball way too long. He led the country in time per dropback his year, was a first-round pick. Malik Willis was the second or third quarterback off the board, held the ball way too long in college, got to the NFL, still held the ball way too long. You can go through this just about.
I'm not sure those last two are making the case that they're all very good players.
No, they're all very good college football players.
Okay, gotcha.
These are all players who are very good college football players. Joe Burrow held the ball too long in college because he had Jamar Chase and he had Justin Jefferson and he had all these people that he could just scramble around. Marcus Mariota held the ball too long in college. These are not people who were expected to be decisive. The Tua model of, I'm going to be a quarterback who gets the ball out quick in college, usually doesn't happen. Because if you are somebody who's running around buying time in college, it's because you're more athletic than the guys trying to tackle you. Yeah. And Cam Ward, by and large, more athletic than the guys who was trying to tackle him at Miami, at Incarnate Word, at Washington State. So he afforded it. Is he going to continue to be more athletic than players at the next level? That's what separates Josh Allen from Kenny Pickett.
Well, and I would say of that list, almost all of those names, extraordinary runners and athleticism on all of those guys. Even Joe Burrow was sneaky great athletically. I don't think Ward has Marcus Mariota talent or Caleb Williams talent from that perspective. And obviously, Brinkerhead talking about Josh Allen. The issue is I don't think anyone believes Cam Ward to be of that caliber of a prospect. It doesn't mean he couldn't be a great NFL player or a bad NFL player. We just don't know. But when you're talking about prospects, and I guess to be fair, Josh Allen was what, 7th overall?
Was the 3rd or 4th quarterback.
So was, that was Darnold and Mayfield, I think, first, and then Mayfield goes first, and then Darnold, and then he goes. It wasn't like there was consensus with him either. So it's always, it's always hindsight being 2020. There's no question about that.
Trubisky over Mahomes.
Yeah. So woof. Forget about that one. And they traded up to get one of those guys, or to get Trubisky.
So did the Chiefs.
I know. You could see my brain going like, oh, wait a second, that comment doesn't make any sense. So I think it'll be interesting from that particular skill set, because there's a lot of names in there that it didn't translate. And so I think that's ultimately the question is, can you, and this is where I think Brian Callahan's comments about the fixing a player, because I've long believed this about coaches, just having talked to them for so many years. Every coach thinks they can fix the thing or the guy. That's literally in the job title, right? Maurice Clarett, Mike Shanahan drafted Maurice Clarett thinking, I got this, I can fix this. And he's drinking vodka on the practice field. Like, you can't, some things it's too much. And so with Cam, it's the two things I think are the last minute decision that gets him in trouble. That's a little too risky, even in college, definitely too risky in the NFL. And the process that got him to that point inside of the play. And if he gets rid of those two things and learns to, because that's what Callahan had to do with Joe Burrow, was we had to once we got him, boom, 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 ball, boom, boom, snap ball. That's, if Cam Ward has that, then I can see why they might be looking at him at number 1. And so we shall see. All right, let's hear from Shedeur, because it's a very different personality type, very different type of confidence. It is out there, and it is in your face, and that's how he likes it, and that's how he's comfortable. And I personally love it. If you're asking me who do I want to cover on the beat per se, for the team, it's not even close. It's Shedeur Sanders. Here was some highlights from Shedeur on Thursday.
The number of where you go don't matter. Like I say, and so I reference Tom Brady because he was the best of the best in all categories. He didn't go first. So the number getting picked don't matter. I wasn't the top-rated quarterback coming out of high school because it's a lot of exterior things that people like and they don't like about me. And I'm realistic, and I'm realistic about my family and everything that people say it comes with. It's extremely important to keep your mental in the best place, because that's what my game is playing. My game's not playing for my legs and not even just my arms. So I know longevity, the all-time greats, was Tom Brady's best trait. His mental. He's able to think. So if you have those traits of greatness and I know where I'm heading, then why wouldn't the franchise pick me? The ultimate cheat code. That's the plan. If that's not what you're trying to do, don't get me. If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the culture, don't get me. So you should know history repeats itself over and over and over. And I've done it over and over and over. So it should be no question why NFL franchise should pick me. So I'm truly thankful, my dad was able to assemble a staff. He was able to assemble because there's knowledge everywhere. We're able to talk to the running back coach, receiver coaches, defensive coordinators, all these different types of coaches to give you their perspective on what you need to improve on and grow at. So I'm realistic. I know what I need to improve on. I know what I need to grow at. And year by year, cut on the tape, those mistakes cut down yearly. So I'm able to adapt to all different type of personalities. But the truly thing that I know is I know what I want, and I know what's going to make me succeed. So that's these conversations with the coaches, with the GMs, and understanding, look, this how I'm going to get on track. Because I tried everybody's way. I tried every different style, every different way. So I know what works for me and what makes me play my best. Yeah, Tom Brady, he's an all-time great. Being able to have that resource, being able to have that person I'm able to talk to and call whenever I'm having questions about the game, and he's able to relate to it because he did at the highest level, is truly amazing. I'm thankful for that.
All right, there was Shedeur Sanders. We do have some breaking news, it appears. We got a Shefty bomb during Shedeur Sanders clips there, so we'll get to that in just a second. But some good questions from you guys in the comments. Coach Will says, you guys are in the building. Not that any of us have had one-on-one time with Amy Adams-Strunk here, but who would miss Amy like if you are Coach Will's? I personally, I don't want to say that she would go for Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward is the more talented player, and I think Cam Ward belongs as the number one pick. So I think that's the case. But I do think that Shedeur Sanders' personality, I find to be super interesting. I find him to be confident and charismatic. I know there's some people that don't necessarily agree with that.
I was kind of listening.
We're going to get to the news.
Sorry, shuffling a lot of stuff around. He has the personality that people are going to find magnetic. He's definitely more polished when it comes to being in front of a camera. He grew up around cameras. Definitely easier for him to do that part of the job, but let's not pretend that's the only reason why he's where he is. He's also a very good volume thrower who completes a lot of passes. So the polish is definitely part of it. The confidence is definitely part of it. You have to take what you can get, but I think that he is definitely going to check that box more so than maybe Cam would.
All right. So I guess we can tie in your stories with the news that just broke because it's all working together. Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. And yes, as Eddie points out, and as QC points out, and as Brinkerhead points out in the comment section, Adam Schefter reporting, and if you want to read it, please, by all means, Adam Schefter reporting that Matthew Stafford will stay in Los Angeles.
LA's quarterback is back. The Rams and Matthew Stafford reached agreement today on a restructured deal that keeps him in Los Angeles and quashes any and all trade speculation. Per sources, the first significant offseason domino has fallen. This is being reported by ESPN and NFL Network. And for what it's worth, when I spoke to Brinker this morning, he said that he expected the first domino to fall within the next couple days. So he was only off by a matter of like 72 hours. It happened.
Within the next couple of days. It was totally accurate.
It did happen within the next couple of days. I think that everybody kind of had a feeling that this was heading toward resolution. And whatever way you look at it for the Tennessee Titans, probably a good thing. As people are mentioning in the comments here, fewer quarterbacks on the market. Very, very good for the Titans as they try to make the decision about whether they want to trade the pick or hold on to the pick.
Yes. Is that your laptop and your phone that's blowing up over here?
Yeah, I'll mute the laptop.
No, it's okay. It's okay. This is what happens, folks, when you're doing a live stream from an NFL event and we get a huge piece of news that affects the team that also affects, I assume, Nick, part of your story.
Yeah.
That's going to go up here if it's not already up live. We're going to get to that. So the cost here and the story here live on the Tennessee and Tennessean.com. The first one, of course, is all about Chad Brinker and the cost of doing business. They said, quote in the story, open for business. So the Tennessee Titans, and here's the thing, what he did in my mind, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Nick, on this, what I think he did in the story was confirm a lot of the things that are either A, common sense, make a whole lot of sense, and then he might have corrected a few things. But at the end of the day, number one, they are open for business. They have to listen to offers. If they're not listening to offers, I would consider that malpractice. And so confirming that they have some hypothetical introductory type of offers for the number one overall pick, that somebody doesn't call up and say, hey, man, what would it take to come up to number one? That's the job. That's what should be happening here. And it doesn't mean they're close to a deal. It doesn't mean they're not interested. It doesn't mean they are interested. It's the job. It's listen to the offers and organize them in a way that you think is easy to work through.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. The situation they're in. And Braden and I were talking about this kind of on the walk over here to set this up. One of the most interesting things that Chad said in our sit down this morning was talking about that idea of the can't miss prospect, the generational talent, all of the things that we've been talking about for a month because of that quote. Go and read the story, Tennessean.com. I'll plug it 100 more times. He kind of walks that back, not in a sense of they don't want a generational talent, but he even concedes, look, if we deem this guy is a generational talent, we still have to listen to what's available to us. We can't just blindly say, go get the best player because he's a generational talent. I think Chad was using the term franchise player today, or franchise caliber player, which seemingly interchangeable at times. They do mean different things. Franchise caliber player versus generational player are different things. But if we're using them to mean top talent on the board, game-changing player, the Titans are publicly now, at least in the story, admitting even if there's a guy who we think is can't miss, we do need to listen to offers. And these are hypothetical offers. I want to stress, Chad said on the record, the offers they are receiving are, well, how would you react if we offered this? It's not, we're offering this. So
are we in the ballpark? Can we start talking? Does this make sense to you? It's all it's the process.
Yeah. The quote's in there. He said teams have inquired saying, we would like to move up. What would it take? He said teams have inquired by saying, what would you react if we hypothetically offered this? It's very early. The Titans still publicly, Chad said it 2 hours ago, whenever I talked to him, 3 hours ago, they don't know what they want to do yet because they need to see how these markets shape out first. Stafford is the first major domino. There's a lot of other dominoes that have to fall before they can concretely say this is the best path to take.
Well, and the very specific dominoes that affect the Titans, of course, are, let's say, the Raiders, hypothetically, after two media members got in a fight in Indianapolis over the sort of the machinations of the reporting there, that Brady, the Raiders part owner, and Matt Stafford up in Montana are kind of having conversations and meeting, and turns out that wasn't good enough. I'm not surprised at all. I think it was a heavy favorite that he was going to return to Los Angeles and finish his career with the Rams. However, I think the deal with the Raiders now is that the 6th pick is now very clearly an option, especially if they like Shedeur Sanders as much as people think they do. Again, that's sort of air quotes. But it absolutely drives up the price of Sam Darnold. Somebody asked in the comments, does that mean that they're going after Darnold? Brinkerhead says that the two Titans go after Darnold. I know for a fact they scouted him pretty hard during the regular season and that he was clearly on their radar, obviously. But I don't know if he gives them what they want at this stage of the season. Now, if they trade down and have no interest in Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, just none, like, hey, even if we're picking 12, we're not interested in somebody falling to us. We don't think they're going to be good for us. You know, Cam goes 1 or Cam goes 3 and they're down at 7 or 6. I think it's an option for them, and I think they're interested. I don't think it's a long-term solution. I don't think Sam Darnold's all of a sudden going to have a 10-year career at his next stop. I think it's going to be, I don't want to say similar to Kirk Cousins, but I think he could have another decent couple of seasons for a team. I think the Titans, it could do a lot worse than Sam Darnold, but $30 million a year. I don't know if I'm skeptical. I'm hesitant to say that Darnold is the right answer, but it's certainly possible with the cap space.
Yeah, and to the point we were making earlier, we can talk about who likes Shedeur all we want, but if the perception has trended towards Cam is a leg ahead of Shedeur, pretty much this boils down to, does somebody like Cam Ward more than the Titans do, or does somebody value Cam Ward to a point that is so outlandishly high that the Titans can't afford to not accept an offer? And so whether that's the Giants, whether that is the Raiders, whether that is the Jets, whether that's the Cleveland Browns moving up from 2 to 1, which is always a possibility.
That'd be great.
There are so many options here of who values the most prominent guy most, because the Titans really have to think about that. But you also have to decide, who do you trust to start at quarterback in the year 2025? And if it's not Sam Darnold, and it's not Cam Ward, and it's not Shedeur Sanders, you're kind of hitting into the B tier.
Will Levis.
You've got Will Levis coming back. You have guys like Russell Wilson, guys like Justin Fields. We've made this list before. Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Jacoby Brissett, Drew Lock, Daniel Jones.
I would absolutely trade down to 3 or 6 or 7, take a bunch of extra picks, and go to battle with Brissett and Levis and live to fight another quarterback day, for lack of a better term.
And that is definitely going to be an option.
Yep.
But you also got to sell tickets.
I hear you. So, look, Shedeur Sanders, I came away I came away from the conversation with Shedeur Sanders just like almost like jealous of people who get to cover him no matter where he goes. Like he's just such a gravitational force, and you cannot help but pay attention. Like, I think Travis Hunter does some of this too in a very different way. Again, more quiet confidence, inner belief, where Shedeur's just a little bit, certainly way more flamboyant. But he would be incredibly fun to cover. He would be incredibly fun to follow as a fan. If you are a young football fan and Titans fan in Nashville, and you want to your point, sell tickets, sell jerseys, he would do huge things for the Q rating of the team. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's a great player, and so that's my own opinion on this or whatever. It's their decision. Cody says you don't think anyone will trade up for Carter. I have not had a chance to talk to you on the air since the Carter news. Number one, does the stress fracture and the injury and saying he's going to be healthy by the pro day, should that affect the Titans' decision making in this at all?
Probably not. I don't think of a stress fracture as an injury that's going to linger so long term that it should dissuade a team from picking him.
I don't think anyone moves up to draft him, though.
No, I
don't think that happens.
The list of edge defenders who are good enough as prospects that teams should have considered moving up for them at the number one pick is pretty much Myles Garrett. Like, you could put Jadeveon Clowney on there if you want. I don't think he would have even been worth trading up to number one.
I mean, Mario Williams might have been better than Jadeveon Clowney almost.
It's like Abdul Carter's a really good player, but if you are trading up number one to pick a guy who probably wouldn't even be would be the number one edge rusher in a draft 50% of years, compared to a guy who could be 100% of years, I don't think that teams are going to give up future ones for that.
Look, I know I've said this. I know I'm a broken record on this. Titans need to move back to 3, draft Abdul Carter, and take all the extra capital and go to town. Now, I want to go back to your point about, like, I realize that we are sort of beating the dead horse here when trying to talk about, like, who has final say with the Titans. And I know fans care about that for a while, and then maybe you guys are tired of it too. I know we're tired of talking about it. I think Kaharski summed it up brilliantly in his story on paulkaharski.com, which is largely like, look, Chad Brinker has veto power, but he's not going to be an overbearing final say kind of guy. It's going to be football decisions are going to be made by Mike Borgonzi and the rest of his staff. That may not be perfect. It may not be exactly what the fans want or the media want, but it is what it is. Let's move forward. I think that's the right way to look at this. The question is this one of the first times where we could theoretically create a scenario, again, all just sort of us speculating here, in which you have a coach, Brian Callahan, who likes Cam Ward. He doesn't love him, but he really likes him. Mike Borgonzi might love Cam Ward, or maybe he doesn't. And they go to Chad Brinker and they say, look, we really like Cam Ward. We know he has a chance to be a really good player. We're not 100% sure, but we really like this pick. We think it could be the smart pick. And Chad Brinker has to say, I have to consider the entirety of the franchise for an entirety of what hopefully is a very long career, and says, I'm going to trade back instead. There could be a little bit of, like, I'm going to say mild tension, because I don't think Callahan would say, well, that's like, if Callahan stands on a table and says, we have to draft this guy right now, I think that might matter and count for something. But that's the kind of veto we might talk about in this. And maybe Borgonzi's on the Brinker side, or maybe Callahan's on the Brinker. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't know who's on what side on this. But I think that's an example of where sort of a non-meddling veto power might step in and say, no, we can get 3 top 100 picks. We need to move down to 3. And if that means we don't get the guy that you guys really like at 1, I have to consider that. And that's that's just sort of the nature of complicated businesses making big decisions, honestly.
Can you throw Jason's comment up real quick? Because I think this is a fun thing to talk about. Jason writes, when you're living to battle for a quarterback another day, will your options be as good as your options today? Probably not. Interesting thought. Just to throw out some names, there were 3 teams that were needing quarterbacks that passed on Will Levis in 2023. Those 3 teams being the Chicago Bears, the Washington Commanders, and the New England Patriots. They all lived to fight another day. They ended up with Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May. We can keep going backwards. I don't know.
I don't think you need to.
in 2020, the Jacksonville Jaguars desperately needed a quarterback, passed on Jordan Love, ended up with Trevor Lawrence the next year. Is that better? Is that worse? Does it just prove you have more opportunities to get quarterbacks? Yes. The Buffalo Bills needed a quarterback in 2017, traded out of the pick that was used to select Patrick Mahomes. The next year they got Josh Allen.
Dude, you are destroying you never know about next year. You can't. This is your chance to get a quarterback. You just destroyed that.
This is not all my research. Some of this was brought up in Daniel Jeremiah's media call last week, so I will give credit to that opinion. But if you do look at your options might not be as good next year, they might. There's a lot of quarterbacks.
They might.
There are more good quarterbacks than we think. And look, quarterback luck is so contingent on, well, you got one. Before Patrick Mahomes, Do you know who the last quarterback drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs to start a game for the Kansas City Chiefs was? I'm not even going to make you think. It was Todd Blackledge.
I wanted to say Jim Druckenmiller, but that was the Niners.
It was Todd Blackledge in the 1980s.
Wow.
They had terrible luck developing quarterbacks. Then they drafted the best of all time. The Bills, between Jim Kelly and Josh Allen, were a desert wasteland.
Don't you talk about J.P. Lossman that way.
All respect to Ryan Fitzpatrick and E.J. Manuel, but look, you just need to get the right one. The Washington Commanders went through quarterback after quarterback after quarterback after quarterback, and now everybody thinks Jaden Daniels is the future of the league.
Don't give the Titans any ideas about trying to force Amy Adams-Strunk to sell the team, though. Okay, because she's not a bad owner. Okay, guys.
So all of this is to say, are your options going to be as good tomorrow as they are today? There is no guaranteeing they will, but there's also no guaranteeing they won't. So let's not say you have the opportunity, you have to do it now. You have the opportunity, and chances are if you start Jacoby Brissett next year, you're going to have the opportunity again.
and you still might get better quarterback play than last year. So it should be very interesting. I want to get to the other article that I guess is being reworked. Is it published yet?
It's published. It'll be reworked. But Tennessean.com, read my obsolete reporting.
We'll not true at all. We'll talk about that in just a second. Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Please check out both of those great local businesses that support us. Sign up for the In Crowd. If you're going into Sinkers Beverages, please go in there. You get access to really early allocations, really good bourbon and stuff. Fantastic there. So make sure you check out Shotgun Willie's Barbecue as well. Sinkers Beverages, folks, 4-time liquor store of the year and craft beer retailer of the year. I've had Zombie Dust because there's a lot of beverages in this trip. And I've had some Zombie Dust, which is Three Floyds, which is a great brewery here in Indiana. One of the best beers I've had on my trip so far. So if you're ever in Indiana, make sure you check out Zombie Dust. Excellent beer. Very highly recommended as well. Okay, so let's get to the other story you've posted and what you're writing about. And that is Chad Brinker using the big R word. Take it away, Nick.
Rebuild. Let's talk about quotes, guys. Here's a direct quote from Chad Brinker today. I'm looking for it in my notes here. First time I've heard Titans executives use this word in this 2-year teardown process, we should call it. Chad says, I know people don't like hearing the word rebuild and stuff like that. And I don't know if I really want to use that word. But at the same time, we are in a position where we do. We've kind of got to rebuild this roster and build everything back up again. So there we have a statement. Those are the words that are being said. The Titans are willing to admit this is kind of a rebuild. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I think that is great to hear. I think that is what you want to hear from a team that just went 3-14 and has been saying, let's not spend all of our money right now. Let's not force it. Let's not go out and spend $250 million like last offseason to try and put lipstick on a pig on a roster that needs to be completely overhauled. Chad Brinker is kind of positioning himself where he's letting Brian Callahan and Mike Borgonzi be the people who think about the now, and he can be the guy who has to keep an eye on the future. Eye on the future means don't force this year into being a 6-win season so it's not a 3-win season. Does that mean, who asks it right here, Brinkerhead, rebuild means nobody gets fired? I can't guarantee that. People get fired amid rebuilds all the time. But
if you're not good at your job, you get fired. That's it.
But the rebuild, we can not dance around the word anymore. We don't have to dance around it. And I respect them for saying it.
I agree with your takeaway, which is I'm glad to hear it. I think that is good. The Titans have been, I think this administration, at least since January, the combination of folks, has been willing to admit publicly that they needed some patience. And I think if you look at the turmoil in the front office, going back to John Robinson's firing, through the Mike Vrabel firing, through the Rand Carthon situation, through the second Rand Carthon situation, through Chad Brinker taking over, through the hiring of Borgonzi, through Callahan, through all this stuff, they are in desperate need of stability and sort of calm peacetime. Like wartime presidents and peacetime presidents, they need peacetime. And if that is telling the fans, honestly, give us some patience and buy into what we're doing, I think one of the problems the Nashville Predators had is that they asked for that 2 years ago. Then they got a little high on their own supply and spent a bunch of money, which granted didn't affect their long rebuild process, to try to compete. Expectations went up, and now people are devastated and disappointed with how they've played, which is fair because they've played terribly. Right now, and PK said this on the show, he thinks that a reasonable expectation for next year based on the situation that they're in is to show pretty significant improvement, to get to 6 or 7 wins. And I've kind of always thought, like, I don't know if they, unless Cam Ward is the dude, like we're talking Mahomes, Allen, whatever, it's hard to see why getting to 7 or 8 wins is like such a great thing for this organization without building it up from the ground up. So I am glad. I'm like you. I am glad that they are willing to admit to their fans and ask them to buy into the vision, bigger picture. And I think that's a good thing for the organization. I think it's bad that the team is not good. I get that, guys. I understand that. But I know people in the comments too were like, hey, I just want something to watch. I just want something to entertain me. Look, Shedeur Sanders would do that. Travis Hunter would absolutely do that.
That's the dream situation. Travis Hunter would be the entertainer.
Now, do you get him at 3 instead and then help the rebuild process? Also interesting in your conversation with Chad Brinker is that he thought that the 30 picks over 3 years in the top 12 top 100 picks was taken a little out of context. I don't think it was out of context. It was sort of his you correct me if I'm wrong here. It's sort of his perfect vision of what could be.
It was taken a little bit too literally.
Yeah, probably.
He told me that he thinks that people heard him say 12 top 100 picks over 3 years and interpreted it as he will not trade back for anything less than 12 top 100 picks. That is impossible. Of course, that's not going to happen as the precursor to one trade. And for what it's worth, I asked him on the record if he would say what the precursors to a trade would be, what they're looking for in a deal. That one, he had no comment on.
He knows what he's doing.
that one I can't tell you on the record, or off the record for that matter. But it is interesting, the position they're in of how do you figure out what the thing is that's going to make you good. Like, one thing that's been connected to Brinker since he got to Nashville is the Aaron Rodgers stuff. He worked with Aaron Rodgers for 13 years in Green Bay. Mm-hmm. Speaking of this right now, one of the things they put out in response to the national guys in response to the Stafford move, Schefter is already reporting that the Giants plan to bring in Aaron Rodgers as a visit to evaluate him. I asked Brinker straight up, hey, do you want to comment on your relationship with Aaron Rodgers? Because everybody speculates about it. And Brinker said, of course I know him. I worked with him for 13 years. Of course, I have not had contact with him before that. That is against the rules, but also Aaron is very selective about where he wants to go, and he is going to dictate who he talks to. All of this to be said, Brinker ended this conversation about Aaron Rodgers by once again reiterating, we need to see how all the dominoes fall. Is Aaron Rodgers a domino or the domino that needs to fall next? I do not know. Is Russell Wilson going to fall before Aaron Rodgers? Where do these dominoes shake out? Very fascinating.
Team Ramrod trying to lower the price, Giants? We're onto you. I like that, Team Ramrod.
Very funny.
Does Chad Brinker have Aaron Rodgers' cell phone number? Of course he does. They knew each other for 13 years.
Aaron Rodgers' first year as a starter in Green Bay was 2008. Chad Brinker was hired in Green Bay in 2009.
They came in together.
Like they were kind of attached for a long time. But also, Chad Brinker was part of the brain trust that selected Jordan Love. So Aaron Rodgers, clearly no stranger to the idea of having to mentor a younger quarterback. He was in that situation at the beginning of his career. He tolerated that situation as best he could through a couple of MVPs later in his career. Would he be willing to do it again? I do not know.
If you draft a quarterback and want to bring in I think Rodgers is a better 1 year stopgap than like Darnold is for 3. I'd rather have Rodgers for 1 than Darnold for 3. What's interesting is Eddie says, do you want to see Rodgers here? Look, I would love to cover him because I think he's a fascinating human being. I don't agree with I'm very capable of separating like my fandom from like my personal feelings towards somebody. I still listen to Michael Jackson. It's very complicated. I get it. And so I don't have an issue with like how I find interesting people to be interesting. And so I would love to cover him. I think it would be great. Is it relevant to my sort of childhood and my team fandom of the Packers? Not really. I think what's interesting is, what does Aaron Rodgers want? And I assume what Aaron Rodgers wants, not only to get to a couple of statistical benchmarks, which I think he's a couple numbers short of some very historic numbers like touchdowns and stuff. He wants to win a championship. He wants to compete for another Super Bowl. And I'm curious if you think the readout on the Giants conversation is the same as mine, which is that maybe the teams that are trying to compete for Super Bowls aren't interested in Aaron Rodgers. Is that?
Yeah, you're running out of teams that need quarterbacks that can compete. I mean, at this point, it's Pittsburgh. Like, Pittsburgh is the only team
right.
capable of competing right now that you would think would be in the market for a quarterback if they don't end up bringing back Fields or Wilson. So if Aaron Rodgers wants to play this year, his best options right now seem to be the Giants, the Raiders, the Titans, teams that are not set up for success. I have a hard time believing that he'd go to Vegas. The Tom Brady thing kind of makes things a little bit interesting of, would he be willing to work for Tom Brady? I do not know. Maybe, truly maybe,
yeah.
But that would feel a little bit off.
I would want to go play for the Raiders because of Brock Bowers.
That'd be fun
if I was a quarterback.
I don't know. Aaron Rodgers playing for Tom Brady would feel a little bit like Olivia Rodrigo opening for Taylor Swift. It's like, you're trying to be better than that. You can't say you're behind that. Like, you just can't set that standard.
I would argue Olivia Rodrigo is a better musician, but that's neither here nor there.
Agree. Again, we can get canceled later, but agree. I don't know. I think that best chance to compete for a title probably would have been the New York Jets. But
I know, strangely enough, their roster's better than everybody else.
That ship has clearly sailed.
I gotcha. It's super interesting. Rodgers would play. Wants to play behind a line like Philly, says Bo. Rodgers and Cam would change the Titans forever. That's true. It doesn't necessarily mean for the better, Coach Wills. That is for sure. So Titans going to end up with Quinn Ewers somehow. I would not be surprised if Quinn Ewers is drafted in the 3rd or 4th round by the Tennessee Titans. I am going to continue to stand on the Kyle McCord Mountain, and we'll see what he does when he throws on Saturday. We shall see. By the way, I said both quarterbacks, I think, spoke on Thursday. Today is, in fact, Friday. It is a flat time is such a flat circle here because you don't really go outside during the day and you go outside a lot at night. It's a crazy event to be at and cover. So
if we're just going to randomly throw out things that happened and blew our minds, do you think I have a higher vertical leap than James Pierce? You saw both of us jump yesterday. Who can jump higher?
I think it's James Pierce, but not by much. You did fall down.
I did fall down. I did not survive the jump.
I mean, you survived. You just.
I did not survive the fall.
You didn't get injured.
I didn't stick the landing, as gymnasts might say. I fell on my face trying to touch a pipe. To be fair, Sam Phelan also fell. There's just not video of him.
He fell?
He fell.
Did he fall?
Yeah.
I did not fall. The 42-year-old, the old man, did not fall. And I think I got closer. This is what happens when grown men are away from their homes and families and pets and have nothing to do but like talk about football and have beer all week long. Is you end up playing shuffleboard and trying to jump and touch things. Like, oh, I can hit that. Oh, I can hit that. And frankly, I think you started it, didn't you? Just
probably
smacking stuff.
Just
running around smacking stuff. So one final combine takeaway here for me, because I'm about to hit the road head on home. I know you guys are here for another day or two, but I want one more takeaway because I went to watch the players work out yesterday. I'm not gonna lie, it is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. It is. There's no energy in the building. There's a handful of fans. You are asking these individuals to do this extremely important thing. And I realize that the scouts do need the information to be all uniform, right? It's like college football scheduling. Like it's it needs to be uniform, same guy testing, same equipment jumping, everything's got to be the same so they can get accurate reads on all these guys. And I get that. But here's what I wanted to here's my takeaway on all this, and it's not any different than my preconceived notions coming into this. Think about scouting Cam Ward. And Brian Callahan said, I'd love to see them throw, but it's not that big a deal. If you're scouting Cam Ward, how much information do you think the Titans have like sifted through to evaluate Cam Ward? 2 years of Incarnate Word, or a year in Incarnate Word, and 2 years at Washington State, and another year of Miami. We're talking 30 to 40 game tapes, right? You're talking 600 passes a year. We are talking about over thousands of throws in 3 different states and 3 different teams, 40 games, let's say. They've studied the tape. Then they've had a long 15-minute to 20-minute sit-down conversation with him, right? They've had conversations with coaches and background checks, and they got their government spooks on the ground looking into people's personal lives. They have all of this stuff. They interviewed players at the Senior Bowl. They saw players at the Senior Bowl practice against other good players that are going to get drafted. Also meaningful tape and evaluation for players. You're telling me that all of that is going to be overridden when he runs a straight line in Indianapolis in front of no fans and no game situation, or that you're going to ignore all of that when he throws the football on crossing routes to receivers who are running from sideline to sideline? When you put it that way and you explain how much data a team has on a player, I find the specific workout at Lucas Oil Stadium to be comically meaningless. I know I'm being a little serious, a little over the top here, but that's how I felt watching it. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Let me do something that I very rarely do and respond with some emotional appeal. Let's talk pathos for a second. I'll tell you guys a story. When I was 15 years old, I want to say, my birthday present from my parents was a big fathead wall sticker that was dry erase board that had 32 slots for draft picks in all 7 rounds. So in my family basement, I had a giant wall sticker that was a draft board. And me and my other doofusy 15-year-old friends would gather together and watch combine workouts and write our favorite players up of like, oh, this is a 2nd-round talent. I can tell because of that 3-cone drill. Oh, this guy's moving up from the 4th to the 3rd on my board. Look at that long jump or whatever.
James
drill.
Pierce was top 10. Now he's a 3rd-round pick because of his 30-inch vertical.
The combine, more than anything else, isn't just an entertainment product. It's a product that makes people who love football. And now that I've gotten to experience the combine in person, it's not great.
It's a marketing tool.
It's a great marketing tool.
It's a brilliant marketing tool.
It's a brilliant marketing tool. And more than that, I am pro being a 15-year-old with nothing better to do watching the combine. Does it lead to a generation of people with mock drafts? Yes.
All over the internet.
Am I annoyed by how many people have mock drafts? Yes. I would much rather you tell me about your fantasy football team than your mock draft. I do not care about your mock draft, but I'm so happy that you care about your mock draft.
Nobody cares about your fantasy football team either.
But all of this entire experience at the combine, this entire experience of getting to cover these NFL events is a reminder that I think, sorry, I'm going to quote Mike Myers here because he's usually the only thing I'm ever thinking about, my childhood hero, Mike Myers. He has a quote where he says, the only 2 things that America is the leading innovators of are defense technology and CGI. It is literally Star Wars and Star Wars. The American identity is built around gigantic dreaming, exceptionalism, this idea of anybody can go from a nobody to a somebody, that whole American dream ethos. And the combine is the ultimate.
It's like catnip.
Oh my gosh, This guy from Holy Cross is going to run just like the guy from Texas, and he's got a chance to be better than the guy from Texas. We are selling the dream that anybody can be a superstar. Now, of course, it's an exclusive invite. There's only 300-something people here. It's not like everybody in the world gets to compete in the combine. It's not an open tryout. But this is as aspirationally American an event as can be conceived.
I hear you. As I said, I think it is a brilliant marketing device to introduce strategically and importantly for the NFL an entire new wave of assets. That's what they are to the NFL. These are commodities that they are selling to you, which is why we are all fans. And to your point of being 15, like, I get it. It's very aspirational. I do think we need to put like Silicon Valley and AI tech into Mike Myers' quote somehow, but like, I mean, they might both be defense and CGI. I don't know, but
so you familiar with the term backdoor pilot? You ever heard that term before?
I have a feeling you're going to tell me about television.
It is about television. A backdoor pilot is a TV episode of one show that is really a TV episode of another show. Remember the episode of The Office, most famously, where they just take place entirely at Dwight's farm, where it's just like they're not in the office, they're on Dwight's farm. That's what's called a backdoor pilot. It is a show
because it's Dwight's farm.
Yeah, it is a show that is testing out, can we make a spinoff within the show?
So you're telling me there's going to be a show about Coach Beard doing drugs all over Europe?
That was not a backdoor pilot. That was that's
interlude.
That's a different thing. We can get into the.
Tell me what it's called.
I call it an Atlanta episode. I don't know if there is an official term for it, but I call it an FX episode. It is we're going to focus on a side character to enrich his background. But nevertheless, the Combine is the NFL's backdoor pilot. This is, oh my gosh, you're watching the NFL. You're watching college football. You're just introducing a bunch of new characters. You're watching college football.
That's it. You're introducing a bunch of new characters. Is exactly what they're doing. They want you to be invested in these guys, and and they are important to the future of the league. Team Ramrod says, what about a 33-year-old guy who used vacation time today to watch the Combine asking for a friend? This is the final point I was going to make here, which is Team Ramrod. Take the vacation time and go watch an Alabama-Georgia football game in person. You know what I'm saying? Like you can scout 15 NFL players, maybe 20 NFL players, but you get to do it in a real moment, in a real game where the real stakes are on the line in a beautiful and wonderful setting. That's either Tuscaloosa or Athens or Texas versus Ohio State this year. Week number 1 is going to be Texas at Ohio State. Go to the Horseshoe, buy the tickets, take the vacation time, and go to the game. That is more valuable, more exciting, more entertaining, and more interesting as it pertains to NFL futures and players and prospects, because that game is going to matter more to the scouts than what's going on in the Combine. I'm not trying to yuck your yum, as my 8-year-old would say. Don't yuck my yum. I'm not trying to do that to those who wanted to take time off. So here we go. Jason says, I'm just grateful for the distraction from doom scrolling, just sparing me in meaningless football info. You could also put the phone down. I mean, not while the show's on, but like you could put the phone down and stay away. We had a weird conversation last night about all this.
We talked a lot in depth about the fears and anxieties related to doom scrolling. We get it, man. We get it. Our jobs are on our phones.
Well, and we signed up for this, and this is totally an aside, but we signed up for this because we're in the media and we have jobs that are forward facing. But when somebody calls into your radio show to dog cuss your wife, not necessarily what I thought I was getting into, but the personal attacks because they disagree with your takes on football, it's just part of the gig. So be cool out there, folks. Just
and you cool. Guys, very cool.
Yeah, you guys are all cool. You guys are great.
Other than the one stray comment about my hair a couple of shows, usually not critical of us. So I am thankful for that.
Yeah, game recognized game. That's right. I don't know if that was in relative conversation about this, but we do appreciate it. All right, so enjoy your cigars tonight.
I will not be at the cigar bar
tonight.
Not
a cigar guy?
I'm not. I have never smoked anything.
That's a shame.
No smoke in my body.
It's a temple, as the video showed last night of you jumping. Total temple.
Anything else? I don't think you were there. We were at a restaurant the other night, and some random person said, "What's your drink of choice?" And without hesitating, I said, "Wild cherry Pepsi."
Why? Is that your actual favorite drink?
That's my actual drink of
choice.
Is
that JT? Look at that. look at who's there. It's JT. Oh, man. All right. You're missing out, man. Okay. Thank you guys for hanging out. We do appreciate it, of course, as JT's just wandering around back there. We do appreciate it. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe, of course, on the podcast app of choice. Thumbs up on the YouTube notifications. Make sure you tune into the Hot Read whenever he's going to do that a little bit later on. Tennessean.com, of course. Pay for good journalism. Really good stuff from us.
There will be more stories for my Brinker sit down coming in the future, so keep an eye out and go read those. There's a lot more information that we didn't even talk about, so give them a shot.
So there you have it, and make sure you're following on the socials as well. We do appreciate it. Hot Read podcast coming up. Paul Karski podcast as well. All the great stuff. Sinkers Beverages, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Oh, what a week it's been. A couple more days to go. Coverage on the 440 Sports Network still coming. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.